If you don't watch YouTube Shorts, and I must confess I actually don't, Instagram Reels is my guilty pleasure, but if you don't, you may be missing my bite-sized racing guides and clips that are as calorie dense as my longer videos. I'm not trying to convert you to YouTube Shorts, God no, but to make it easy for you loyal subscribers to just watch them all in one big globule, I bring you my third compilation of mini guides and clips from recent months. Enjoy! Being weird is a legitimate overtaking strategy, and you'd be amazed how often it gets the job done. Here, I'm right behind someone and they move over to prevent me from getting the inside for the next corner. The usual procedure for me now would be to shimmy back over and get settled back onto the racing line, or maybe stay middle. That would then give them the room to move back over themselves. The secret third option is to stay right behind them for as long as possible. You know, to make them watch the mirrors for longer than they planned, make them sweat a bit, make them hug the inside for longer than they wanted to, wondering whether I'm gonna plan on staying there. Why am I doing that? Am I gonna hit my brakes in time, given I'm so close to their bumper? Am I gonna use my brakes at all? All of this is definitely not what the Mercedes in front wants to worry about when they're trying to spot their own braking point on that deep inside line. And he won't want to brake until he's seen me peel away from behind him. It's a lot to think about. The result is that they miss their braking point by a mile, sail off track, and the place is mine. This is why racing against real people cannot be topped. It's the most fun you can have. I couldn't have asked for a better example of why when the car in front reacts to you, that makes them easier to pass, not harder, because they can be baited, goaded, tripped up into making a mistake. The BMW in front closes the door on me out of Sunset Bend at Sebring, then sits in the middle of a track as a type of neutral defence, doesn't completely close off the inside, but by sitting in the middle makes the inside so narrow that it would be a brave but risky move for me to attempt. But then as we approach the braking point, I make a tiny weave behind him to make him think I'm gonna try. By a stroke of luck, the BMW was also moving the other way to slot into the normal racing line, probably thinking that the risk of me sending a big move down the inside was gone at that point. Together, these two opposing moves clearly catches him out and causes him to react like an elastic band. His reflexes send him way over to the inside in response, while I can slot into the optimal, normal racing line. This couldn't be more perfect. That horribly shallow angle leaves his metaphorical trousers completely down, with next to no chance of sticking to the apex, and there's simply nothing they can do to stop me flying through that open door on the inside and taking that place. This is why easily provoked drivers that react to every move you make are some of the easiest to trip up with mind games, but drivers that don't react at all leave themselves too open to basic moves. Between those two extremes is a perfect balance, and only experience can grant you that sort of judgment. People don't realise that because GT3s are so easy to drive, they're actually better to race, because overtaking relies even more on tactics, placement and pressure. The Lambo ahead goes deeply defensive into turn 10 at Fuji, but by staying tagged onto the corner of his car, rather than just hopping over to the racing line and giving him space to move into the middle, this forces him to remain far over on the inside edge, at least if he doesn't want to open the door to me for a late inside lunge, which is something my car placement suggests I would do given a chance. The problem with being so far off a normal line and at such a narrow angle to the corner is that his braking point is unknown and unpracticed to him. The tighter that you approach the corner, the earlier you'll need to brake in order to even make the apex. I swing back over to the ideal line for braking, and he brakes on the inside, which leaves him wide of the apex, and a space appears for me to jump into. We go side by side cleanly through the exit, and in the end, the overtake is sealed. If a car loses control in front of you and comes to a standstill facing broadside, like this, remember, the odds of them moving forward are very high. That means by the time you get there, the empty space may actually be where they currently are. When I saw this in front of me, I expected that yellow BMW to do the action of least thought, which is to just floor it without the foggiest idea what's coming. So I prepared myself to cut around the back of them if needed. I got 2 freebies out of it, so nice. Cota's turn 11 is pretty unique due to its enormous tract of land on the inside of corner entry. If you take this corner normally, as in optimally, you'll take a line that looks like this. However, this leaves you massively open to overtake attempts because an overtaking car can just take a beeline straight to the apex and claim that piece of track before you even get there. Here's me doing exactly that to a car I'm looking to overtake. I swoop out from behind them and head straight to the apex, braking later, shortcutting the optimal line so that I reach it before the other car with 0 overlap. It's slow and inefficient in terms of outright lap time, but it gives me track position ahead of the car I'm overtaking and puts the task of countering it squarely onto the McLaren. It's up to him to react to me in time and set himself up for a cutback, which on this occasion he doesn't do, maybe due to visibility, maybe I was in his blind spot, maybe due to not having time to set up a response, maybe he's playing a longer game, but regardless of why, I got track position due to turn 11's wide open invitation and I kept hold of the spot. Now this was just a superb example of how racing gets more interesting the better you get at it. Because overtakes start spanning multiple corners, and when that starts happening, you have to think about a sequence of corners, what's coming next, and whether or not your seemingly strong position now will shortly crumble. Here I am going for the inside line at Brooklands Corner at Silverstone. On most tracks, on most corners, this is a good situation to be in. However, I don't fully crack the position loose off him, and we end up side by side into the next corner, which goes the other way, giving the other car the inside line. That puts me at a disadvantage. I get good traction out with better momentum, but the next corner again gives him that inside line, granting him a way to stay alongside as we race down to Copse. Another right-handed corner, another corner where my opponent has the valuable inside line, and you can see I lose this fight. If you're up against similarly skilled people, you're going to find yourself fighting them over multiple corners because they ain't going to make it easy. On this occasion, my inside line for that first corner turned into the outside line for the following 3. Defending is just about making the attacker's job harder, and this defensive tactic is a great example of that mantra. I'm in the Ferrari up ahead, the Lambo is in my slipstream and there's a risk he'll get alongside me, so I've moved to the middle of the track to force the Lambo behind into a decision. Either abandon the attack and hold the normal line, leaving me with the inside advantage, or make a big, risky, difficult lunge up the far inside, if he really wants to, up to him. Heading down the hill at Portimao into turn 1, they make a choice. They dart to the inside and commit deep into the braking zone. It's a real long shot, but he's been forced to make it. He bit off more than he could chew though, struggles to get the car slowed and turn for the corner, and I cut back underneath him to get my spot back. The Lambo's unlucky to get picked off by the BMW behind as well, losing a place overall rather than gaining one. My defence wasn't without risk either, it made me slower through turn 1 and 2, so I'm lucky the BMW didn't get close enough to try me. Holding the middle is probably the most important defensive move to know because it gives the car behind 2 choices, neither of which are going to taste nice. If you ever see this happening in front of you, you're about to get one of your best overtaking chances. The Ferrari and Mercedes ahead are tussling and now they're too wide into the next corner, which is a full throttle turn, but only if you've got the track all to yourself. They don't. I see this and I know that even in the best case scenario, they're going to go through this corner slower than me and therefore exit slower than me. They trip over each other and suffer for it whilst I get a good, clean run behind them. I've got enough momentum to pass the Mercedes easily and draw alongside the Ferrari, but also, thanks to Portimao's track layout, I also have the inside line for the hairpin coming up. I couldn't have asked for better. It was the perfect storm for them, an open goal for me, and 2 places gained. This is one of those times where the phrase, "the enemy of my enemy is my friend," is true. Both of these guys were faster than me, but fighting takes energy. Be ready to pick up the pieces when 2 cars get in each other's way. This was pure gourmet sim racing, an overtake so good that I was basically honoured to be beaten by it. Watch the move first and then I'll break it down afterwards. So I'm in the blue car ahead, the camera car is close enough that I don't want to leave the door open, so I defend quite deeply into the Melbourne hairpin at Donington. This tightens the corner for me, makes it a bit slower, but gives him a chance to close right up, though he loses that momentum because I'm parked on his line out of it. He's still close though, so I hog the middle of a track again to discourage any inside lunges, just like before. He hovers there like he's thinking about it, but then changes his mind and instead throws it onto the outside line, making it side by side through the final turn. The inside line gives me the better route, but it's not enough to peel away the overlap he has on me, and he stays alongside all the way down the main straight. The outside for the final turn became the inside for turn 1, and that was that. The moves were smart, the execution was flawless, good job that guy. This is why sim racing is basically just action chess. Here I'm trying to find my way past the car ahead, who's running the same pace as me, so it's going to have to be something special to get it done. I've stuck my nose in just to spook them off the apex of this awkward left-hander, and it worked well enough to get an overlap alongside them. However, the road curls round to the right, and that'll drip feed the advantage back to him. As he gets out in front, he moves to hold the middle and I stay left, giving them the impression that this is not the corner where I'm going to try something. Then, I try something. By swooping from the left side to the right, where the inside for the next corner will be, I'm hoping to then beat them under braking and occupy the apex before he can, and hope it works out. A little squirrely on exit which spoils my momentum, and now we're back alongside again, but the overlap is slipping away slowly. Thankfully, I still have the inside to the next corner, and I once again rely on better braking to draw fully alongside. Now we're just in a head-to-head fight. Who's going to hit their marks best on our halves of the track? In the end, I have the inside for the final corner in this awesome fight, and it's job done. Overtakes that last multiple corners like this are common when you're up against those of similar skill, and it's exactly what I hope for in every race. In multi-class racing there's one rule for a good time. When a faster car is closing in, don't be helpful, be predictable. I'm fast approaching a GT3 through one of the quickest sections of a track, and my job as the faster class is to predict where the empty space will be when I arrive, so I can keep my momentum up and get past as quickly as I can for both our sakes. Through this section of the track, I expect the GT3 to take the normal line that sweeps away from the exit curb. That should give me enough room to fly past on the inside before the next corner, costing neither me nor him any real time. However, the Corvette doesn't do this and instead holds the outside, occupying right where I would normally expect the empty space to emerge, causing me to have to slam on the brakes, killing all the momentum that I had. I understand how this happened. They saw me approaching and probably assumed I would take their right side and not their left. And a lot of people in my position would do that, perhaps I should have. But in trying to be helpful, they became unpredictable. The empty space I was planning to take never opened up, and if I hadn't reacted in time, it would have been a solid punt up the backside for him. So remember, when a faster class is approaching, at least if they're any good themselves, they will be planning to go where the empty space will be. Don't try to be helpful, just be predictable. Do you know how I was able to easily drive around the outside of this guy and nearly set up an overtake on that guy? It's due to something called the wet line. In iRacing, when the track is wet, the rules change depending on the state of the track. This track right now is well rubbered in, well used, meaning that the normal racing line, this one, is very slippery when wet due to rubber, oils, surface smoothness and the likes. Whereas the areas off the racing line, such as over here, still have a ton of grip because they're not embedded with rubber, not oily, not smooth. They're lesser used parts of the track. This means that driving around the outside on this particular corner is actually much faster than driving on the inside because of a higher grip. In the dry, that would be much slower, but in the wet, it's where you can often go the fastest. Once you become aware of this very counterintuitive aspect of rain racing, that's when you will suddenly start to enjoy the wet races. Most of the time, anyway. Have you ever heard this noise? And wondered what it was? You may have noticed it only happens when a gear change happens, and not all the time. Well, it's actually the gearbox, because certain race car gearboxes rely on compressed air to drive the mechanism, and that noise is caused by the gearbox air compressor activating in order to top up the air pressure when needed. That's why it only happens sometimes, because it's only needed every few shifts. And the only reason it sounds like that is because it's filled with bees. When there's a crash in front of you, don't think left or right. Think stay back. Hit the brakes. Let things play out. You can see how this allows me to safely pass by this off of... For God's sake, man! Huh? I don't make mistakes. I make catastrophes. This is easily the biggest boneheaded move I've made all year. The hypercars ahead were scrapping, giving me a chance to catch up with some great momentum. The Lambo moves to the middle to defend, but this is the Cota hairpin with a huge swathe of land on the inside. You can drive incredibly deep into it, occupy the apex, and stand a solid chance of naturally obstructing the other car from making a successful switchback and keeping the place. It's worked before, so I throw myself over to the inside in a dummy move and brake. But I locked the brakes, not much, but there was no room for error here. It was enough to send this overtake over to the dark side and cause my mistake to become these two Ferraris' problem. The lead Ferrari's steering was crumpled almost as much as my pride and honour. So don't listen to what my mum says, I am far from perfect. Never do this in a serious simulator, because you don't know if this guy's using a Weenie Wheel 300 or a Big Boss Neck Ripper 5000 with a Wrist Twister Plus. People have actually gotten hurt in the past in really tame accidents due to force feedback spikes. But a sucker punch T-bone from a Mach 10 Raging missile sets the stage for something unexpected to happen, and for the force feedback algorithms to spit something actually harmful out at the receiving end. Don't do it, or you will automatically lose whatever argument you had to begin with, and karma will see to it. If My Feet Were Eyes, a poem by Danny Lee. If my feet were eyes, using VRS pedals would be to have 20/20 vision. If my feet were ears, using VRS pedals would be like listening to an angel's harp or hearing the laughter of children. If my feet were a mouth, using VRS pedals would be like drinking water from a clear glacial spring. If my feet were a nose, using VRS pedals would be like inhaling the scent of distant rainstorms while standing in a lavender field. If my feet were fingers, using VRS pedals would be like writing with a quill of pure gold and eagle feather. If my feet were a wallet, I'd want to save 5% on my VRS pedals with the link in bio, or by going to dannylee.co.uk and using the discount link on the homepage. But my feet are feet, and they're using VRS pedals. That's it. Hope you enjoyed this roundup of the strongest mini vids I've made of recent. See you for the next one.